Hi, my name is Mair. I'm doing a series of videos for Outside. I'm an outside tutor and I work on the Outcasts with Emma and Hayley. Today I'm going to be talking about masking and in particular how to take the mask off. Now I'm going to be talking a lot about my experiences, and so I can't guarantee that they'll apply to everyone, but hopefully I can give you some tips on how to take your own mask off or support someone that you're caring for to take their mask off. So what is masking? Masking is trying to adapt your own kind of behaviour, tone of voice, body language to cover up maybe a feeling or a lack of understanding, or to cover up something about you. Now we all mask whether you're autistic or not. So lots of people mask in work, for example, when they want to seem professional. So they'll hide up some of maybe the kind of personality quirks and things like that. The difference with autistic masking is that not only are we trying to cover up kind of those funny little personality quirks, we're trying to cover up our entire neurology. So the way we're trying to stop or change the way our entire brain works. And that takes a lot of time and energy and effort, and it requires us to effectively change everything about us and who we are. And why is masking so bad? Well, masking has recently been linked to poorer mental health, particularly around kind of suicidality. So those people who were masking the most had more kind of suicidal thoughts, feelings, and maybe even attempts. And we know that, and I think autistic people have known that for a very long time. It's just that now the research is coming through, so it's becoming a bit more well known. And that it's simply because it takes so much time, so much energy and so much effort, and it changes how you view yourself as well. Through masking, your own self-esteem becomes less, and you become less confident because you are almost reinforcing that belief that you are flawed internally, that yourself is flawed, and therefore you have to hide that, and the more you mask, the worse that feeling gets. So as I said, I'm going to share some stuff about how I've gone through a process of trying to learn to take the mask off. But I will tell you now, this is a 20-minute video, but it's taken me years to effectively learn this stuff and go through that process. So it's not easy. It's not easy, and the stuff that I'm going to share with you today, just because it's in a short video on social media doesn't mean that it's not going to take you years to possibly try and do. So the first thing that I did when it came to trying to learn to take my mask off was to identify when and where I was masking the most and masking the least. So quite a common thing, and I felt this, and it's common when I speak to other people, is that when you mask, if you're a person that masks a lot, it can be really hard to know who you actually are. So where are you, and what is the mask? Because you can almost feel like the mask is you. Or you lose a sense of who you are because you're masking so much. So the first kind of step really for me was to really learn and to look at where I mask the most and where I mask the least, and what the form of that mask takes in different situations and different scenarios with different people. And that gave me a bit more of information about where I needed to focus my energy and effort, and how I could recover from episodes of where I've had to mask heavily by learning where I mask the least. So for example, I mask the most when I'm in work. So I like to come across as professional. I like to come across as confident and eloquent when I'm in work. I'm a public speaker, so I need to kind of give off that impression. And so that's kind of the area where I mask the most. or I feel like I need to mask the most. But I mask the least when I'm at home on my own in my bedroom, because there's no need for me to mask there, because there's no one around me to mask for. So I have to make sure that I balance out all of those things. And different situations will have varying levels of masking. So for example, when I'm with my friends, I mask a little bit, but not as much as if I'm in work. Or I tend to mask a lot in situations where I feel vulnerable. So if I'm at an appointment with my therapist or psychiatrist or whatever, if I'm feeling very vulnerable, I mask more. Now that's a whole different video of how problems occur in those situations when masking comes into play. But for now, I'll carry on talking about unmasking or demasking. The second tip then is to take into account the burden of masking when you're planning your week or your day. Masking requires a lot of energy, a lot of effort and time and kind of brain power. So a task, you might have the actual task that requires energy and effort, but on top of that then you have kind of like the burden of masking as well, which also requires energy, effort and time. Now for a long time I couldn't work out why I found certain tasks so draining, or why certain days I would be completely exhausted. And it's all because of masking. I wasn't taking into account the added energy and effort required to mask. So I couldn't work out how people worked like 5 days a week full time in an office when a single half day knocked me out for 3 days. And it was all because of the amount of masking I was having to do in those situations. So now when I'm planning my days and my week and my work, I think about what kind of tasks and places and situations that I'm going to have to mask really heavily, and where I'm going to have a certain amount of time to recover. So take yesterday for example, I had to go shopping, I had a GP appointment and I had training. Now I probably could have worked in the hours in between those three things. You know, theoretically there was the time there to be able to do work. However, I knew that going to the doctor and the shop and to do training would require me to mask really heavily. And therefore, I made sure that I didn't work in between those three things, because I needed time to let my brain recover from the heavy masking that I was doing during those events. So that's what I do, is I look at my week and I make sure that I haven't got 3 heavy days of work in a row where I'm going to be masking heavily. I make sure I break everything up and put in between any heavy masking situations. I put periods of time where I can go into my room and not mask at all, so I can recover. That was kind of like the first phase of taking my mask off, was just to become aware of it and to plan around it. But then the second phase, a second phase kind of kicked in, where it was more around having to explore myself and explore who I am and my values and what I wanted out of life. And that gets deep and it can be scary. But not doing that means that I wouldn't have necessarily moved forward in my process or the journey of trying to take the mask off. So the next thing I did, and the next tip I've got, is to think about who you were before you started to mask heavily. So I know for certain that I started to mask when I was about 6 years old. But I didn't really start to mask heavily until I moved into secondary school. That is a time when a lot of young people feel the pressure socially, and I think that just triggered the necessity for me to mask a lot. And I've over the past couple of years, I've been thinking about who I was before I started to mask heavily. What were my values? What did I do? What did I want from life before I started masking? And that's been really important because it helps me to understand who I really am, what are my actual values, and what were the things that masking made me do. What are the things that come from masking rather than what I actually want to do or who I really am? So an example of that is that before I started masking heavily, I didn't wear makeup. I didn't really care about the clothes that I wore. I didn't care about fashion or beauty standards. I didn't care. I was a bit of a tomboy. And when I started to mask really heavily, I started wearing a lot of makeup. I started to really care about the clothes that I was wearing. And I know a lot of young people go through that at that age, at kind of 13, 14. But I think for me, what was different was that I didn't actually want to do those things. They were just coming out of a place where I wanted to be accepted socially, and I could see everyone else doing it, so I kind of copied. And I also felt very vulnerable, and I wanted to kind of build up those walls around me to make sure that no one realised that I was different. And so I almost physically put another mask on, putting a mask of kind of face creams and moisture and all of that on my face was just almost like an enhanced version of my mask. So in the last couple of years now, when I realised that wearing makeup and caring about clothes probably wasn't actually kind of coming from who I really was, it was coming from my mask, I stopped wearing makeup and I stopped caring, too much about what I was wearing. And that's been really interesting because I've realised that it was part of my mask. I don't like wearing makeup. In fact, I find it really uncomfortable and it aggravates a lot of my sensory kind of sensitivities. And I'm not saying wearing makeup is bad, but for me, it wasn't the right thing. So that's a simple thing of looking at who I was before and then trying to figure out what the difference was between my mask and who that little girl was. The next thing is to learn to value your own happiness and well-being above the comfort of others, or making other people comfortable. A lot of my masking is to do with firstly trying to fit in socially, but also that comes into the fact that I want to make other people comfortable. So I will put myself in situations where I feel really uncomfortable and really quite pressured in order to make others feel comfortable. I used to do that a lot, and that was mainly down to masking. A long process of kind of learning all of this and learning what it means for me meant that I'm coming out of it and I'm trying to learn to value my own happiness and my own well-being above making other people comfortable. At the end of the day, if I can't feel happy and well, then it doesn't really matter, if I'm making other people comfortable, because I'm just going to burn myself out. These were things like stimming. Stimming publicly is quite a scary thing to do, and masking automatically means that you have to kind of suppress any stims. But I realised that I was not stimming because I knew it made other people uncomfortable, rather than thinking that stimming was a need. It was a need for me. I needed to do it in order to kind of regulate. And so I've started to learn to feel comfortable stimming in public, irrespective of what other people are going to say. And another thing that kind of closely links into that is to do the things, I do the things that bring you joy, irrespective of what people's judgments are or how you think other people might judge you. And a big thing around this was that I realised that when I started to mask heavily, a lot of my behaviours changed. So for example, before I started to mask heavily, I loved being in water, particularly in the sea. I loved it. I loved going and playing in the waves, splashing around, just enjoying myself. And I stopped doing that. And I realised recently that it was because I thought that it wasn't socially acceptable to do that, or I thought people might judge me for doing that. And so I decided to put my swimming costume back on and test this kind of theory that I had, and went back into the water and played like a kid. I jumped through the waves, I let myself splash around and enjoy myself. And it was amazing, because actually that was something that really brought me joy. Deep down into my bones, it made me happy. And the only reason I didn't do it was because I didn't want to feel judged, or I didn't want other people to judge me. But I think I got to the point where if it makes me happy, it makes me happy, and that doesn't change if people judge me or not. And in fact, if people are going to judge me for being happy, then I don't want those people in my life anyway, or I don't care about those people's opinions. So doing the things that bring you joy, just pure joy, irrespective of whether people are going to judge you or not. Do the things that make you really happy, because that's who you are, really. That's who you are on the inside. And yeah, and this is a process that is taking me years. So this 20-minute video is going to make it seem like these are easy things to do. They are not. They take time, they take energy, and they require courage, because a lot of it requires you to think about who you are and to explore all your values and explore your childhood as well, which a lot of people will find really difficult. But the advantage of doing all these things and learning to mask a lot less, or take the mask off to get altogether, is, for me personally, I am happier, I am healthier, I don't burn out as much, I feel like I have purpose, and I feel like when I wake up in the morning, I don't dread the day. And in general, I think it's just because I can be who I actually am, rather than what I think other people need me to be or want me to be. And that's liberating. It means that I can follow what my own body and my own emotions are telling me, rather than do the things that people expect me to do, or feel the things I should feel. Yeah, this is it's quite a complex kind of topic to kind of discuss, and I could probably talk about it for hours. But I hope those tips have given you, or the person, you know, if you're caring for someone, or you're autistic yourself, trying to learn how to take the mask off, you know, it's given you some ideas. Maybe you just kick-started some thinking or some thought processes around this. These are all things that worked for me. They may not work for you. But at the end of the day, your purpose on this earth is not to make other people comfortable or to do what other people think you should do. It's to be yourself and do the things that you want to do, and the things that make you happy. Not what you think should make you happy. So yeah, sometimes it's about being yourself, irrespective of what other people say about who you are and what you do. So that got a bit deep, so I'm going to stop there. I hope you're enjoying these videos, and I'll be recording another one next week, so I'll see you next time.